good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Global Meatless Monday webinar series. Today, we're going to be speaking about the importance of social media in building a movement or a campaign. My name is Dana Smith. I'm the campaign director for Meatless Monday. And just a few things before we start. One, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Please also, if it's not automatically done, keep yourselves on mute while we are presenting. And as we're going along, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and we'll either address them as we go, or we'll certainly get to them at the end. And if we're running out of time, we can address them offline. And just also be aware that we are recording this. So outside of that, I think that should take care of some of the house cleaning rules. But again, thank you so much for joining. As I mentioned, my name is Dana Smith. I'm the campaign director for Meatless Monday. I'm located in New York City. Meatless Monday, as many of you know, encourages people to take an easy first step in cutting back on their meat consumption by going meatless one day a week. We were founded almost 20 years ago. Yep, that's right. Next year, we will be celebrating our 20th anniversary, which is incredible. We were founded in 2003 by an incredible visionary named Sid Lerner, and he had a simple vision of just wanting to educate the public on the health and environmental benefits of cutting back on meat. And it's interesting to think back then there was no such thing as social media, or at least not the way we know it today. And to think 20 years later how much has changed in terms of how we communicate and get messages out about our campaigns. But I'm really excited about today's webinar, as social media is something that I'm personally intrigued by and invested in. But more specifically, it's incredible to see how much impact social media can have on businesses and campaigns. And it's also incredible to witness how much work and planning goes into this very specific piece of any communications and marketing strategy. So today we'll be looking into these strategies and best practices from experts around the globe. We have panelists who manage digital and social media for their organizations, and these are some of the strongest social media accounts in the meat reduction space. So without further ado, I'll allow our panelists to introduce themselves.
Good day, sorry. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Gabriela Duhart, and I work at Humane Society International in the Farm Animal Welfare and Protection Department with research and social media. The social media team at the HSI Farm Animal Department consists of Hui Theng, who is the Corporate Engagement and Media Manager, and Stephanie McNerney, who is the manager for the Plant-Based Solutions program around the world. I have been collaborating with HSI since 2011, first in Mexico as a campaign manager for plant-based and cage-free programs, and now I am based in Sweden. I'm very excited to be here to share this space and to learn from the amazing work our partners and other organizations are doing to raise awareness and to create change for animals, for the environment, and of course for human health through meat reduction campaigns. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joy Lehmann. I work with Dana at Meatless Monday. So I manage our US programs and partnerships, and I also oversee our content and social media. And from a social media perspective, we are a small but mighty team, and we cover a few different platforms, not all of them, but really excited to share some of our insights, and hopefully it's helpful for anyone who is growing or starting a campaign or looking to really elevate an existing campaigns, and really excited to hear from the other panelists and questions and comments about what everyone else is doing to really help encourage people to eat more plant-based.
Oh, hi, my name is Larissa. I'm head of communications at SBB, which stands for Brazilian Vegetarian Society in Portuguese. I became vegan in 2015 and started working at SBB in 2017. So SBB has been promoting Meatless Monday campaign since 2009, and social media is a really important tool to promote and reach more people. So I'm very happy to be here with you all. Thank you for the invitation.
Hi, my name is Eileen. I work as a social media manager at ProVeg International. I started working with ProVeg in 2017, which is right after they were founded. So it's still quite a young organization, I would say. And just for all of you who maybe haven't heard about ProVeg yet, ProVeg is an international food awareness organization with a mission to reduce the global consumption of animals by 50% by 2040. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you to everyone for your introductions. Such an incredible panel from across the globe. So I think I want to start out by posing the question to all of you. As I was saying in the introduction, you know, social media and digital media is such an important piece of our communication strategy in this day and age. And I know from you know, working on the Meatless Monday social media with such a small team, but there's so much involved. And I want to know from each of you, how do you realistically create, maintain, and manage your social media channels and your campaigns? You know, how many people are on your staff? How much time are you putting into it each week? That sort of thing, because it's amazing to me. And I think people that don't work on it don't have an understanding of really how much time and work goes into it. So Eileen, I'll start with you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's actually like a super important question. I feel like that's something I keep asking myself because the social media landscape is just changing so quickly that we have to ask ourselves, how do we realistically keep our channels alive? How do we effectively work with social media? And I think like what I constantly remind myself of is that quality is so much more important than quantity. I used to think about, yeah, on a weekly basis, I was thinking like, I have to post something today. What do I post today? And I think that's once you really take a step back and think about like, it's not just posting to post, but it's posting to make a change, to raise awareness. It's, yeah, that really helps me to calm down, I would say. Yeah, there's really no point in trying to post every day or twice a day if you just don't have good content. Yeah, so I always try to set realistic goals. Definitely thinking about what can we produce, how much content can we produce. So at ProVeg, we're actually just a team of 2 who just do social media for our international channels. So it's just me and an assistant. So we are a small team, and keeping all of our channels alive and having good quality content is the most important thing for us. So we have to set realistic goals. Yeah. So yeah, we try to not put too much pressure on us. Yeah, I mean, except for having good quality content, of course. Yeah, as for maintaining our channels, we do have a social media content plan that has like all the different channels we post on, and then like a calendar view. And we really put in like, what do we post on what day, on what channel? And we do have a list with our content pillar in that social media plan, and it's all color coded so that you can immediately see what content pillar are we maybe posting too often about, what content pillar are we maybe neglecting a little bit. And that really helps us to come up with good content every week. And yeah, and like for campaigns in specific, when we launch a new campaign, we try to pre-plan as much as possible. So like a couple of weeks before the campaign launch, we sit together with the campaigning team and we talk about what kind of visuals do we need, what is the message we want to convey to the people, what graphics do we need, what information do we need, and we try to pre-plan as much as possible so that we have ideally a few weeks, like let's say the campaign is longer than a month, then we try to pre-plan as much content as possible so that the campaign launch itself can go smoothly.
Great, thank you. I love the notion of quality over quantity. And hopefully you can let us know how you track that or measure that somewhere down the line in the webinar. But Larissa, same question to you.
Well, then I coordinated social media of 5 people today, and our efforts go mostly to our Instagram account where we do have the best engagement. So today we have SVB's main account with 370,000 followers, and our Meatless Monday campaign has its own account with 248,000 followers. We do post every day on SVB's account, and we do post about 5 times a week on the Meatless Monday Instagram. So every Monday we post on SVB about the Meatless Monday campaign, so we get to promote and send that message to our followers. And we also do collabs between the 2 accounts, and we repost these contents on Facebook. But again, Instagram takes the most of our focus and energy, especially when we talk about comments and direct messages, because we consider this the best way to establish communication and engage with our public. So basically our strategy is to create posts that are somehow useful to people. So it might be a post teaching a recipe, teaching how to prepare a meal without animal products, talking about the positive environmental impact that this person can make in one day, or even content such as cute or funny videos to get a smile from this person and encourage them to share it with their followers. We also tend to use call to actions to make people engage in such a small thing like reposting or inviting a friend so they can feel part or something of something.
Awesome. Joy, I'll pass it to you. Same question.
Yeah, and I mimic all of those same sentiments. I think one of the other important things that we focus on is kind of knowing your channels and which platforms you get the most value out of and spending your time accordingly. So we similarly focus mostly on Instagram because we get the best engagement, we have the largest audience, and we see it as a really high value. We maintain our other accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, to make sure that they still have content, but we do not prioritize that in terms of, so we're a team of 2 people for the 3 with some oversight. So we don't have the capacity to go deep into all of those channels. I think the other thing when you really are focusing in is to know who your audience is or who you would like that audience to be, and ensuring that you're tailoring your content accordingly. Because, you know, we can get really passionate about something, but if that's not engaging our audience or helping to drive change, then it's important to kind of know when it's time to change course and look at different options. You know, we also are very rigorous about maintaining a content calendar. We post every day on our channels, but we plan far in advance, and that gives us the opportunity to see the big picture, also schedule, but then on a day-to-day basis, we're not worrying about what we're going to post. We can focus on engaging with the platforms, focusing on real-time things like stories and you know, concentrating on what else is going on. So that's helpful just in terms of planning. Posting just a couple of times a week is totally sufficient too. We found that once a day works well for us, but that, you know, it really depends account by account. And you don't need to spend hours and hours a day. You know, you can allot, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to your community engagement. So I think, you know, it doesn't need to be overwhelming, but it does need to be consistent. And the other thing is really, I would say probably on a quarterly basis, look back and see what did really well and what didn't do well. And when you're planning ahead, kind of hone in on those things. You're going to get some flukes. Like sometimes you're going to get, you know, kind of a mediocre post that does really well. So don't look at like the one thing that did well, look at kind of the aggregate, look at the whole quarter or the whole year to say, what were people consistently engaging with and what were they not? And I think the other thing is when you're looking at platforms, what is the main type of content? For the most part, it's videos now. So if you are have the capacity to create videos, that's amazing. If you're not, then I think it's important to look at, what is the balance of what you create or utilize yourself to build your brand, and then what is what you share to ensure that you can provide the medium that people are using, but you may not have to create it yourself. So we do a mix of both, but we have found it's important to not just be a reposting account, that for us, we do want to maintain our own brand materials as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joy. And then finally, or not finally, now Gabriela.
Yes, a lot of things have already been said. I think it's overall having a couple of planned posts per week through a calendar that we create a month ahead helps us keep our accounts fresh, and then we nourish them with new developments that come up as we go, such as team victories, events, or news related to farm animal welfare. Instagram is also our strongest platform. And one thing we do is we focus on international holidays or specific topics every month, and that also helps us create a content that is more logical to what people are seeing in other parts of the internet. For example, on sustainability or heart health, Earth Month or World Heart Day, for instance. And in order to make sure we cover as much of our international team's work, we look at their planning for the months ahead and we follow up with them. It is true that with such a large team, there's a lot of activity to be monitored. And another strategy is to divide the topics amongst our team so they can each focus on something and follow up. And we also try to keep an eye for related news pieces around the internet to stay up to date and to keep people also up to date on the news that comes up on the topic. And this has been successful. We try to plan ahead as much as possible to never be out of post if anything gets stuck.
Great. Thank you. So sort of getting more in depth with your planning, curious to know for each of your campaigns, what content and messaging performs best for you, what resonates with your audiences, and what's successful. I think some of you are going to share slides so you can show us actual examples, and I'm happy to kick it off with Larissa.
Oh, Dana, thank you. Definitely recipes perform the best in our experience. We understand that we can show the reality about animal rights, environmental or health issues, but people need tools to start their change of habits. And when we talk about recipes, people don't need to be vegan or vegetarian to take action and cook something like that. So this type of content can reach anyone. Also, celebrity quotes go very well because it is a shareable content. So it goes way beyond our followers. And we cannot forget to mention cute videos from sanctuaries that show how these animals love affection and that there's no difference between them and those we have at home, besides, of course, this way we can promote a beautiful work from sanctuaries. And SVB has a campaign actually called Why Love One and Eat the Other. And this broadcasts this notion that animals should be viewed as equals and that the feelings we have towards our pets should be expanded to all. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen here for you. Let me know if you can see this.
Yes, we can see it. Thanks, Larissa.
Yeah. So here we have 3 examples of posts that perform really well. This first one teaches how to make an Easter egg using a whole avocado. Even the peel, the avocado peel was used to give the egg shape. So this is a zero waste recipe. So we did a collab actually with an Instagram account that talks about zero waste. We posted this last Friday and it reached organically 500,000 accounts. So it went really well. And the second one, this is a Brazilian comedian. And he's saying, I started with Meatless Monday. Everyone can do a little. It's a first step. Let's do this together. reach a lot of people too. And here we have 3 examples of videos from sanctuaries or animal rescues that also performed really well. So this is basically what we focus more our energy.
Great. And Joy?
Yeah, so we focus primarily on food-related content. We also cover health and environment, but we found that very practical food-related content, recipes, plant-based protein swaps, really kind of helping people say, okay, I don't want to eat meat, then what do I eat instead? And that does very well for us. We're probably 80-10-10 in that 80% of our content is food related, about 10% health and 10% environment. So I can just show you quickly, get the right one, a couple of our, let's see. There you go. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So we, these are some of our, the categories that we post. It's not just recipes. So typically when we post recipes or recipe videos, that is user generated content. So that's other accounts that we share because we don't produce that in-house, but we do create other content with our brand. So we do kind of have a schedule as well. So we post what we call news flashes. So this covers plant-based products, news and events that are related to plant-based options. A lot of it is quick serve restaurants and products. We do also provide a lot of information on kind of the day-to-day things that people can do. So if you go to Burger King and Taco Bell, here's some really easy options you can do for Meatless Monday instead. And what the other aspect that we provide a lot of information that does well is tips and hacks. So this is everything from how to add more plants, you know, how to, you know, massaging kale, pressing tofu, and then obviously the plant-based protein swaps do really well. And, you know, and we look at different types of engagement. There's kind of likes, shares, and saves. We really look at those to see what is drawing the biggest kind of bang for our buck. And kind of these typically fall into 2 categories. The first and the last are more of like the informative, like, oh, okay, that helped me understand something. I'm seeing the comparison and the benefit here. And then the other aspect is very much easy food related. You know, what do I eat instead? You know, the swaps, we have swaps for every protein type, and then very simple plant-based meals that range everything from comfort food to very healthy salads. We kind of run the gamut, but those are the areas for us that typically do the best.
Great. And that beans versus beef asset we've been using for years and always performs well. So Joy just had it on the screen. Okay, so I'll pass it off to Gabriela. Same question. What content and messaging works well for you at Humane Society?
So first of all, I would like to say that cute animal pictures always get a lot of reactions from the public, whether it's farm animals or any type of animal. And this is something that we learned from our colleagues that work with companion animals. Here I have 2 examples that were popular. One was I will show it in a minute, for International Day of Happiness, and the other one was a cute pun for Valentine's Day. And we also, in order to spur action, to have calls for action and also create awareness, we got people to screenshot them and share them with people. And okay, give me 1 second, please. I will share. For some reason, I can't present, but if you can see them, these are the holiday ones and the International Day of Happiness and the Valentine's one. Then, as Joy mentioned, facts are always popular. People really like to be shown science-based facts, and this is something that HSI does, of course. And it's a way to enable people to do, not only show them why it's good to transition to plant-based foods, but also how they can do it. And another strategy that has been useful, another post, is to show the impact of plant-based eating, or the reduced impact of plant-based eating on animals that are not necessarily farm animals. And that also helps us cover other audiences that might not necessarily be interested in farm animals, or might be interested in biodiversity, other environmental topics. And I'm going to show you sparkly videos. Things that are attractive to the eye are always having more likes. And here is a one. Sorry. Well, I cannot show it right now because it's moving, but this is a holiday post that we had for December. And sorry, I will stop screen sharing now.
Thanks, Gabriela. And then Eileen.
Are you able to see to take away my screen? I cannot.
Yeah, you're still showing your screen.
I think there's a stop sharing option.
It should be at the top. Oh, you got
There
it.
you
Yeah,
go.
no. Okay, yeah. For ProRich, in general, we focus on positive messaging. We try to always be solution oriented. So yeah, we don't. We try to not focus on like the negative aspects, but always focus on the solutions. And whenever we do talk about issues or negative things, we always try to offer a solution. And try to show people what they can do to change whatever is going wrong. And that's obviously usually switching to a more plant-rich diet. Also gonna try to share my screen just to show you a few examples. One of the content types that works pretty well for us is good news. So that's with that I mean just like industry news, or also good news from the plant-based movement in general. So here are just a few examples. We usually try to come up with a catchy headlines that attracts people. And in general, that also fits with our positive communications approach to share a lot of good news. And we can really see how our community likes it. Those posts usually have a really good engagement rate. It's just, I guess, especially what's if you consider what's going on in the world, it's always good to share some good news. People just like it. And the other type of content that works good for us is educational content. Like some of the other speakers already mentioned, numbers and infographics usually work pretty well. People are usually really interested in that, and it also helps to start a conversation in the comments, usually, especially if it's like more, controversial numbers, like the World Day of Social Justice post that we shared I think it was, when was it? Towards the end of last year. Such numbers are always really good. Just at ProRich, we have a research department that usually checks all our numbers, especially surrounding like social justice topics. That's always like something that we are criticized for, but we still choose to talk about such topics because we have at ProRich 5 pros, and one of the pros is pro-justice. So it's a more difficult topic, but we still try to talk about food justice a lot. Okay, those were.
Okay, great, thanks. I think the interesting thing is that, and I'm not surprised, that a lot of us are working on similar things, and what is successful for one is successful for the other. So of course, videos, recipes, you just showed like your good news post is similar to our news flash posts, and of course, trying to weave in a lot of the education in terms of environmental impact, health impact, animal welfare, et cetera. So not surprising, but I think we're all working on similar things and seeing similar things perform well, which leads me to my next question. So Joy, what are your top 3 best practices for social media marketing, and why do they work?
Unmuting myself would be helpful here. So there's a lot of different things that are helpful, but I think the top 3 that I would focus on is, using analytics and understanding your audience. That's really important. We spend a lot of time understanding what is engaging and what is not, and then being able to focus our content development on the posts and the medium that are the most successful for us. So we use the in-platform analytics for all of our different channels. So that's free for anyone to use. You, especially if you have a business account for any of your channels, you can get pretty good analytics on, what your best performing posts are, and also who your audience is. The other recommendation is to really focus on expanding beyond your core audience. So what I mean by that is working with influencers, brands, anything you can do to amplify what you're doing outside of your own channels, because it's very easy, especially if you have a large account, to get great engagement within your core audience, but we can often end up speaking to the choir, and we need to provide great content and inspire those people to share. But at the same time, we need a bigger tent for the message that we have. And so that really requires going outside of our own channels and working with partners that can help communicate the message. And, the easiest option is usually to work with more plant-based focus, but I would really recommend trying to look for more flexitarian and non-vegetarian, vegan related organizations to speak to kind of the average meat eaters, them catching people when they're looking to reduce their meat consumption, but aren't really sure how. And that's really going to hopefully encourage more people in a practical sense to feel empowered to reduce their meat consumption. And then the third would be to know your platforms and making, it's fine. You can post the same content across every channel that you're on, but that might not be the best use of your time. So what works for us on Instagram is not the same as Facebook and Twitter. And so that's going to be different for each channel and what your focus is. So definitely get to know those and, spend your efforts accordingly. I think that those will really maximize. And also the audience is different. So really, if you can look at that back end analytics, because our Facebook audience is very different from that of our Instagram. So it's important to kind of know who you're speaking to, and that will also then help you develop partnerships and relationships on however you want to kind of either maintain your channel or grow it in different directions.
Excellent. And Gabriela, if you can tell us the same top 3 best practices for your social media marketing.
Yes, I think we can divide it into 3 elements that would be facts, empowerment, and presence. So for facts, HSI always uses science-based facts that give credibility to our work and show the way that HSI operates and the expertise on different topics. And we also understand how people are attracted to information that can be backed up with science and feel that their decisions are supported in this way. For empowerment, we try to show people that they have the power to impact the way food is produced and what is produced with everyday choices. As you may have noticed, and I mentioned before, people do not like to be told what to do. Instead, they appreciate feeling empowered to do so, to do something, and to be given the tools to perform it. And also to know that other people are doing it as well, especially with a topic that is so intimate and culturally embedded, like food is. This has also been proven by consumer studies, for example. And in this case, we use, as you also do, recipes, and we show companies as well how they can have a huge impact by changing their procurement policies, etc. As one of our audience also is the food service industry, for example. And this involves also providing information on how to do it in an accessible way and offer services for companies. And for presence, aside from posting consistently, we try to promote our team's work and victories all of the time. And we are also working on giving more of a human face to our posts and live videos from the ground, since there is a lot of activity, even if that in-person activity has been a bit slowed down with the pandemic. And a lot of events are canceled or postponed, etc. But this is something that we know has a big impact and gets people to follow us and to feel more related to our work.
Great. I love the notion of putting a face to the work that you're doing. I think that makes it feel relatable to your audiences. So that's great. And then a question for Eileen and Larissa. How do you handle responding to negative comments online? I know there's different schools of thought on this. Some are to ignore it, some are to bury it, some are to address it. I'd love to know how you handle, negative comments that you're seeing in your feeds or on your posts, and what that looks like in your organization. So Eileen, how are you handling that?
Yeah, we try to comment we try to reply into all comments, as long as they're somewhat constructive. So when we see it's like a troll who's commenting, then we ignore that. So we don't waste time on trolls. But if people just criticize our content or disagree with what we post, then we try to explain why we shared what we shared. Yeah, so we make sure to check our comment section every day. And we also try to reply to everything within 24 hours. And I think that's especially important when you get negative comments, because it can just de-escalate quickly, and then negative comments might accumulate if you don't put a halt to it. So we try to reply quickly to that and just explain why we posted it. And I have to say, for us, it's mostly a Facebook issue and maybe also a little bit on Twitter, but on Instagram and LinkedIn, we don't have to deal with too many negative comments, thankfully. And I think it always helps to have like FAQ documents on sensitive topics. We have that for cellular agriculture, for instance, because whenever we post about that, we know that people don't like it, or people have questions, or are just against it. And just that really helps to quickly reply to comments, especially to negative comments. And I have to say, on Facebook, we also like to use the hide comment function. We never delete comments. We prefer hiding it because then people don't get a notification. But we usually do that with trolls and not so much with criticism, because usually criticism can also lead to constructive conversations. And I have to say, we do have quite a good community. So sometimes we don't really have to do a lot, but they then reply and explain why they think it's a good post or it's a good topic. I have to say, as a rule of thumb, we only reply once and don't engage in these conversations. And thankfully, our community usually takes over.
Yeah, I agree. The best posts are when your community is kind of engaging with each other, and you may not even have to get involved, but they're helping each other out or answering, or oftentimes fighting with each other. But you're right, it's a good conversation piece. It gets the conversation started, and it could lead to constructive feedback. And of course, agree with directing people to an FAQ section on your website could be the easiest way to kind of just say, hey, you can find all the information here, and it's backed in science and research. Larissa, same question to you. How do you deal with negativity on your channels?
Well, as Eileen said, it depends on the negative comments. We always analyze them, and if it's a constructive criticism, a real person or a comment that is really worth responding to, we reply using nonviolent communication, inviting them to try Meatless Monday. It's actually not rare to engage in a conversation with a potential hater that at the end apologizes and says they will try Meatless Monday when we use nonviolent communication. But the fact is that Brazil has a lot of people exploring farmed animals, and that brings us some really tough haters. So comments that are disrespectful, spread hate, or bully someone, we choose to ignore, to delete, or in some situations even to ban this person, depending on what was said. But we really don't want to waste our energy on that because there are a lot of people that really need our time and focus. So on the other hand, we make a lot of effort to respond and thank positive comments, to encourage and give attention to those who are interested. So we connect to these people instead of connecting with haters.
That's great. Definitely leading with positivity. Okay, so on to the other side of things. Influencers, this is sort of a new space. Again, when Meatless Monday was being born and bred, I don't think this was a thing. And curious to know how you work with influencers, maybe even what do you consider an influencer, or do you work with brand partners as well to collaborate on social media? I know often two large brands or campaigns working together can have a really big impact in terms of engagement or growing your follower base. And I'm also curious, if you work with them, are you paying influencers? Are some of them just doing it because they are really passionate and in the same space? So Larissa, I'll ask that question to you.
Yeah, we do work with influencers, and we actually consider everyone as a potential influencer. Also, we work with brands and health professionals that spontaneously promote Meatless Monday in their social media. It's always unpaid, but we develop a relationship with most of them by constantly sharing our materials with these professionals. And we also ask for the brands that have SVB's vegan label to send us their products, so we can resend them in a box full of vegan goodies along with our Meatless Monday t-shirt, our guidelines to these influencers. Some of them are invited to be our ambassadors, and they promote Meatless Monday to their followers every Monday or every Sunday night. So this is a very good strategy because we pop the bubble and we can reach those who are not vegans or vegetarians yet, since not all ambassadors or supporters are vegans, as the majority of their followers. Today, we have a list with more than 100 influencers and celebrities that we have contact with. We do have a public relations representative that talks to them, sends materials about our campaigns, our press kits, asks for pictures wearing our t-shirt, and asks for quotes, for example, to develop our posts on Instagram.
Larissa, quick question. Is there, when you work with influencers, I know you said you think everyone's an influencer, and I think that's a great strategy, but the people that you're more aligned with, is it based on their content, or are you looking for a certain follower amount? Like, let's say maybe you won't work with people that have under 100,000 followers or something.
It is based on their content. Of course, we check their engagement, not the number of followers, but we see there are people with less than 1,000 followers that creates a lot of useful content. So we focus on this useful content that can be helpful to our followers.
Joy, same question to you about influencers.
Yeah, so we have a kind of a variety of different ways that we work with influencers and kind of view them in a couple of different categories. One would be kind of what I would call our in-house influencers. These are kind of very close partners that we work with on a regular basis. So for example, we have for the brand, we call it the Meatless Monday Culinary Advisors. So this is a group of chefs and culinary professionals that, some are plant-based, some are not, more flexitarian, but they provide really fantastic culinary content. And so we often work with them to utilize their content. They talk about Meatless Monday. Another type of more organic influencer we work with, we have kind of lists that we've cultivated over time that cover different categories. So it's health, environment, and cooking, you know, depending on what type of campaign we are trying to, you know, roll out or boost engagement, then we will reach out directly, usually through DMs, to those specific lists and say, hey, we have this great new like environmental social media campaign. We love your help in getting this out there. And so that's one way. And then the third aspect would be kind of larger brands and influencers that we work with to kind of just amplify the brand, grow awareness. But I would say just also it's important, no matter what type of influencer you're working with, that really, especially if it's a collaboration between the two, is to identify really what you want to achieve out of the partnership and the collaboration. Is it awareness? Is it follower growth? Like, what are you really looking to do? And ensuring that both sides are very clear on the expectations on who's posting what, who's providing what, and what that looks like. So there's not confusion and there's a lot of consistency. You know, giveaways, especially with brands, are a fantastic way to, you know, create a really strong partnership. And also typically if you do like this account, it's a good way to gain followers as well, and provide some incentive for people to, you know, try a new plant-based product. And then I think then the other aspect is, you know, if you have a new campaign or a specific message that you're trying to get out, it's using a large influencer is a really great way to do that, especially if either they're like-minded or they speak to an audience that you really think that campaign can address some of the issues that you're working with. So, you know, those are all just important aspects to have in mind when you're choosing. And right now we do not pay any influencers. The landscape could be changing over time though, so I would not rule out in the future, potentially, if there's a very large collaboration, that some payment might be required, because there are more and more people who their day-to-day job is marketing through social media. So, you know, that it's a quickly evolving space. So don't be surprised if, you know, collaboration requests might end in an ask for some sort of payment.
Okay, great to know. Okay, this question I'm going to direct towards Gabriela, and I think it's really important because I think all of the social media is really fun, and people can get wrapped up in just having fun with it and posting fun photos and videos and haha. But really, with all of us, we're trying to, you know, encourage behavior change. We're trying to impact the planet, impact public health. And so really, how do you turn social followers into actual implementers? How do you sort of drive them to do more than just follow you? So whether it's driving them to download stuff on your website or getting someone within a community. You know, Meatless Monday in the US, we have a lot of people that start their own Meatless Monday programs in their communities by reaching out to restaurants and schools and hospitals. But again, I'm interested in knowing, for our audience today, you know, how do you take these people that are following you, this mass amount of people, and turn them into having some sort of impact? So Gabriela, I'm going to throw that to you.
One main thing we try to do is to spur some sort of action in every single post, whether it's to tell people to comment, to ask people to comment, to give an opinion, to follow us or our team accounts around the world. Try plant-based recipes, for example. We of course share links to big press releases, campaigns, etc. when needed. But something that can give us more interactions and get people to think about the topics that we're putting forward is spurring actions through stories. polls, constant polls, and are often encouraging people to tell us about the recipes they have tried or dishes they would like to see featured. So we want people to be thinking about plant-based food because it's something that happens 3 times a day when you eat, right? So in order to feature, for example, people who prepare plant-based dishes around the world, we create recipe roundups for regions with specific ingredients or meals of the day. This gives us visibility, but also gets those accounts interested in our work as we tag them. So for example, we have roundups of plant-based egg alternatives or a roundup of breakfast ideas. And this also brings us closer to people from different regions of the world. And I don't know if our partners have experienced that with their accounts, but we cater to such a broad range of cultures and geographical locations that we have to think about that. We have to think how to get people interested in what we do, even though we're a US based organization and we have our international team all over the world and our language is English, right? So that also limits the audiences that can see our work. So that is one way we can reach more people and get them interested. As a team, we set a day of the week where each of the social media team members takes time to interact with other accounts. And this boosts our presence both through the algorithms, but it also makes us visible to people who may not be aware of our presence in social media or do not know about our work. I would say that to make sure to spur some sort of action with every single post and every single story. And we're trying to focus on that.
Yeah. And I think was one of the impetus for this webinar is just, how much time it takes. Like Gabriela, you're saying you try to respond to every post. Someone else said within 24 hours, they're commenting on every comment. These are things that take time. And often we're working with 1 or 2 people on a team managing these big social platforms. So it's really, interesting to see how much work goes into maintaining profiles and also engaging with your audience and your followers. And so just to round this out, I think this is a nice way to close out. I think the audience would be interested in knowing what kind of tools do you use to track your social media, that might help you understand your audience or look at post performance, analytics and data. And I'd be curious to know, Eileen, I'm going to ask you, are you using free options, paid options? I know Joy mentioned earlier some free options that she's using that come with, some of the platforms. But I think this is an important piece in knowing what's performing well so that you could mimic it, or knowing, as we mentioned earlier, sometimes we struggle with environmental information. How can we keep at it so that could eventually turn into a positive performing post? So Eileen, what tools do you use to track some of your media messages and ensure that what you're doing is performing well?
Yeah, we kind of use both free and paid tools. It took us quite a long time to figure out, what we actually want to track and what the best way is to track the different KPIs that we're interested in. Free ways are obviously the different social media platforms themselves. They all have an analytics section, but obviously that's not the best overview. So what we used to do in the past and are still doing to some extent is just taking the data of those different platforms and putting them into an Excel sheet. That just helps us to compare our performance, especially over a longer time period. And what we recently managed to set up was to connect the Google Sheet that we have with Google Data Studio. So that's really a really good way to create more visually appealing graphs and so on. So that was really helpful, especially since we try to work more closely with the other pro-veg countries that are kind of separate from us. In this way, we were able to connect all of our data and compare what the different countries are doing. But just for which international itself, so those are the accounts that I'm responsible for. We have a paid Hootsuite account that has a really nice analytics section. Yeah, you can create your own reports there depending on what you actually want to analyze. They have a lot of metrics that you can add to reports. And you can also download these reports if you want to. And what is really nice, in case you're interested in Hootsuite, they have a 50% discount for NGOs, and you can just apply for that on their website. So that's really cool. And what we are also using in Hootsuite is the best time to post. They analyze this for you, and you can look for the goal that you're interested in. So you can look for the best time to post to build awareness or to increase your engagement or also to drive traffic. So that's really a handy tool in Hootsuite. Yeah, and especially to track website traffic, what we do is we set up UTM links for whenever we post our own content on social media, just to see what social post actually drives traffic to the website. And you can set these UTM links up in Hootsuite, but you can also do it there are quite a few free tools to set up these trackable links. Yeah, and then this way we can track how many people click on the links, but also how many people maybe sign up for our newsletter, how many people maybe do a donation and so on. So for us, what we did in the last couple of years was first to think about what KPIs are we actually interested in, and then we try to figure out where can we track it, because like the social media platforms, they all have analytics sections, but they don't necessarily have like all the data that you're interested in. So then you might need to invest in a paid tool.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. We also use Hootsuite and toy with getting a more advanced paid tool. So I'm happy to hear what you're doing. So that closes out the formal part of our webinar. I think Daphne is going to join us. There she is. And there have been some great questions in the chat that perhaps we can walk through and each person can answer what's specific to them.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, everyone. I am Daphne. I'm with the Center for a Livable Future, and I have some questions that have been asked, but we're going to start with the easiest one. I think someone asked, anyone using TikTok? It's becoming quite a thing now, right?
We're not using TikTok. You'll probably see us there eventually. But the nice thing is a lot of those videos, they end up on Instagram as well. So I think it's a high value platform, but that's something that, creating videos, having a personality, being able to constantly provide, really great content on there is imperative. It's not really like Instagram where you can throw up a post that you created 6 months ago that's static. Like it's kind of a different universe. So definitely know what you're getting into, but it is probably high value, at least right now.
Anyone else?
Well, no. we do have an account also, but we don't focus a lot there. But it's something we are trying to do because we know there's a lot of young people and our personas are based also on young people. So we are trying to start there.
Yeah. Okay. We had a really good question, actually. John had a really good question that I feel like you guys answered a little bit, but I'll just kind of read it and to see if you have anything to add. I think when you guys each were showing the pictures about the different messaging that you use, but he asks, what type of messaging do you find to be the most effective? Example, get the most attention. For example, generally negative, such as animal abuse, climate change, or generally positive, like tasty food or improved soil health from growing plants like proteins. I think actually almost all of you guys touched on that, but anything else to add to that?
Well, we know negative content gets more attention, but also a lot of unfollows, and this is not what we are looking for. We know that the most effective messages are the one that really inspires people. We want people to relate veganism or vegetarianism as something enjoyable. Actually, this month, April, we are launching a new campaign with SVB that is called Being Vegan is Delicious. So we really want to show people that we do not suffer from excluding animal products from our diet. So we know negative contents gets a lot of attention, but we do post something like that when it's absolutely, there's no way to post something new, something trending, then we go for it, but mostly we don't.
Okay. Anybody else? Joy, you wanted to say something?
We like to keep it positive as well in terms of what we post, because that's, you know, how we want people to view the idea. You know, I guess where you would teeter on the line of that is like something like our beans versus beef information that, you know, while we don't view it as controversial, it's certainly people who are hardcore meat eaters that might come across that might feel, you know, personally attacked by that for some reason. But, you know, those types of comparisons can often draw probably the most negative comments. It really depends. On Facebook, I would say almost anything can draw a negative comment, even if it's not controversy at all. But on the other channels, you know, anything that compares really kind of might get closer to addressing kind of myths and misinformation that's out there about plant-based, that people who feel strongly about that might create some controversy. But often, especially if you have a very active community, that someone else will usually jump in and give the correct answer to that before we even see the comment.
Yeah, and I think it's important, I think kind of all of you said it, is that when you get a negative comment, there's also an opportunity to educate. So I think that's great. So just keep that in mind. Thank you so much. Anybody else? No? Okay, so we had a good one, another one. We have a lot of good questions. If Instagram is your strongest, this is why it seems like specifically on Meatless Monday, with its engagement limitations, how do you know it's working? So I believe it goes into the analytics in that one.
So we use our analytics. So the back end on ours, we track it on a weekly basis. We look also at the aggregate quarterly and annually, what is working well and what isn't. So, and we look at all of our channels that way. So it's an entirely a data-driven approach to knowing what works and what does not work.
Okay. Let's see. This is a very specific, we have a, I'm gonna ask this one because I think it's important, sources of information, because not all sources are reliable. And especially if we want to focus on things that are, you know, based on research. So I'm curious to know what you guys use. The question is, what sources do you use to identify content, topics, areas of focus, etc.?
I'm happy to answer, but if anyone else wants to jump in, either Eileen or Gabriela.
I would just say that topics to focus on are usually related to updated, for example, scientific studies that come up, or public policies, also corporate policies that come up, or government policies that come. So we focus on that. And in terms of finding sources for that, we always check verifiable scientific studies or international organization publications. And we also are lucky to have a fact checker as our colleague. So we always make sure that there is someone that can look through every single of our posts that has a scientific fact or a publication goes through there. And it's been really useful because there are a lot of publications that just recycle information or recycle facts that have been published elsewhere. And just because it comes from a credible source, it doesn't necessarily mean that the original source set it up like that. I don't know if I replied to the question.
No, it's good. No, you definitely did. Anybody else want to add to that, or?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
just to say at ProRich it's really similar. We have a research department that checks everything for us. So I personally don't have to do so much, fortunately. But when I look for new content or like topics to post about, I usually first check the news, and if it's like a credible newspaper or news outlet, yeah, that's why I start with.
Yeah, we work
Mhm.
with Center for Livable Future, Daphne and Becky, to produce our own in-house environmental and nutritional information. So that's typically we only really share on social what we've produced ourselves. So we do make it a lot of that available. I mean, it's all available. So I'm just going to drop a couple of links in here, because we are also, especially with our environmental facts, also provide kind of out of the box captions to make sure you're getting the facts right.
Okay. I have a couple of one in the Q&A that just that came up. We'll see. Do the best that you can to answer them. If not, well, definitely if we can answer something or we don't have the answer right then and there, we may have to look for it. When we send out the video, which we definitely will do, I'll try to answer it at that point. This question is, what kind of content should we develop for businesses, restaurants, hotels, etc., besides of marketing trends, case studies, and statistics? So what kind of content outside of, I suppose, the statistics that you guys use when you're showing information that works, what kind of content should be used? I guess that you find too are successful always kind of is a hit.
I can answer that. We have at SVB a program named Opção Vegana, which is in English vegan option. And in this website, and we also had a free consulting for a long while, we offer these restaurants and hotels trainings and guidelines to teach them how to implement vegan options. So now we have a Google map with more than 5,000 restaurants and places to eat. And a lot of them, I think more than 2,000 or almost 3,000, they used our free consulting. So this is a way we could reach this. And of course, we could help all the people that are looking for vegan options.
Okay.
Yep. And we provide a lot of out of the box, either marketing that can be used, some implementation guides that are specifically for large food service providers, like a cafeteria or a hospital. And then also more kind of social media marketing for restaurants. We also encourage people to use the Meatless Monday hashtag and use that as an opportunity to tag us. We share a lot in stories. One other way we have, it's mostly in the city of New York, but annually there's Eat for Climate Week. So we do a large outreach and campaign for restaurants in New York City to have them add plant-based options, because there's a lot of momentum around that week in terms of, climate-friendly foods and other things. So there's also kind of one-off events that are great to tap into, whether that's locally or nationally.
Okay, very good. Let me see what, let me check on our time. We have a few more minutes, so let's keep going if you guys feel like it. Here's one. How do you determine or discern the audience differences across the social media vehicles?
Jump in. We use the analytics, and it's very tricky because when you're catering to such a broad international audience, sometimes we realize that there have been people from only one region that are looking at our posts, and it's difficult to work with the algorithm to focus it on everybody, right? You have to be more specific. So what we do is, for example, when we boost posts, we try to select different regions each time, so we can make a round of the world, so and people can look at them from different parts. But it can be difficult, and probably there are other analytics programs that can help us discern that better. And of course, since we have offices in different regions, then people from those regions are looking at our posts.
Very good. Anybody else? Okay, Joy, we had a question. I probably can answer this. Can we use your graphics on your on our social media channels if we don't have an agreement, formal agreement with you? The answer is yes. I'm 150% positive of that. Joy, is that correct?
That is correct. We're totally open source. So anything you find on our website that you like, feel free to use. You're welcome to add your own logo to it or use it as is. Most things are available. We have a ton of resources on our resource page, and definitely click around because we have a lot of other social media. I've dropped a bunch here that I think might be most useful. I'm going to add one more, just a little bit of a promotion for the Meatless Monday challenge that we created. If folks haven't heard about that, that is a 12-week program that kind of takes people on the path of getting started with plant-based eating. We have all of the materials. You can market that yourselves to your own audiences, and people can use that on their own. So definitely encourage people, if they need an out-of-the-box program, that's an easy one to start with.
Yeah, I will just add to that, and then Daphne, we can close it out. If there are people on the webinar within the audience that need some sort of help, if they need marketing help or research help, we work with CLF to understand the impact that a certain organization can have if their staff went Meatless Monday, or a community. I mean, there's just a wealth of resources. Please reach out to myself, Joy, Daphne, Becky. You can just reach out to us through our website, which is info@Meatless Monday, and let us know what you need help with. That's, really why the campaign was developed and designed, so that we can kind of do some back end work and get all of you to be successful in your meat reduction campaign. So please absolutely reach out to us. I think this was great. I want to thank everyone for participating. If there's questions afterwards and we haven't answered them, let us know. And as Daphne said, we will send out the recording of this think in about 24 hours or so.
Yeah. So, but I do have one question. Actually, I'm curious about this, Dana. This is something you and I, all of us, have actually talked about, which is a good one. Maria, does anyone know how much how much have all these campaigns affected the consumption of animal products? It's an excellent answer. It's a question that we battle ourselves. So I'm curious to know what your responses are.
I'd like to know the answer to that too.
Yeah,
I mean, we see significant growth. Like if we're just looking at, hashtags and, if you're ever on the, Google Analytics and looking at our Google Trends, you can certainly see huge growth in kind of all of these keywords. So, it's definitely growing and moving from kind of a vegan and vegetarian fringe to mainstream everywhere. So we're doing it right. But I would love to know if anyone else could come to have a number other than tracking plant-based sales of products, which is growing, significantly year over year and significantly above kind of average grocery sales.
About our Meatless Monday, as we implement this in public schools and companies, we have a calculator that was developed by a scientist, so we can measure like how many land we saved, how many grains we saved. We don't know the number of animals, but we do have some measures that we can, and we do use this data every year to say how much land we saved, or CO2, for example.
Very good. Well, friends, we come to the end. It's actually 16 after 11, my time, Eastern. But thank you for your time. CLF, it's always a pleasure to help, to work with the Monday campaign, to work on these amazing webinars that we always learn. It's always a learning opportunity. And we thank you, our panelists, for taking the time out of your schedule to participate in this. So thank you for your time. We will send the webinar out in the next, probably, as Dana stated, 24 to 48 hours. It is recorded, and within that as well, if there's any questions that you have that we did not get to answer, I will definitely get a chance to round them up and send them to all of you. Again, thank you. Make it a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was great. Are we done?
It was awesome. Yeah, we're done. I'm going to stop recording.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am.